Well, thank you so much, Kim, for taking the time to meet with me today and talk a little bit about your campaign and why you're running for council and kind of help the voters get to know you a little bit more.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for inviting me to the Washington Wilkes Informer channel. It's an honor. It really is an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. So to get started, what skills and experience do you think make you stand out from the other candidates that are running for City Council in District 2?
Well, you know, that's a great question. I don't really know all the skills and all the experiences of the candidates that are running. I've reached out to many of them. I've asked for an opportunity to meet with them. That hasn't happened. But one of the things that I do know is I go out and I knock on doors and I talk to the voters in this city. I talk to the residents of this city. And what they are looking for is for someone who is courageous enough to stand up and be a voice and help them have their voice to be heard. I have done things. I started at 16 years old with Know Your State Government Day, was elected by my school to attend. At that meeting, went to the West Virginia State Capitol, which is where I grew up. And there I had the privilege of meeting the late and great Senator Robert C. Byrd. At that class, or at that event, he asked the question, what do you need in your community? And my hand shot up like a little rifle at 16 years old. And I let him know that we were having issues in the parking lot of my dad's church, and had to do with the state road. And he asked for my name, he asked for my address, I gave it to him, and a couple months later, the road got fixed. That was when I learned that you have to ask if you want to get. Now that was probably what laid a foundation for me to become a lobbyist. Later in life, after I was all grown up, went to school, did all those kind of things, I learned that there was a great need for advocacy for children and families in my home state. And so I became a lobbyist, and I co-wrote and I lobbied that legislation all the way through, and I actually got to stand at the governor's desk when he signed that law into place, which was a major coup, and it was a big experience for me. But more importantly, it helped the citizens of my home state. In addition to that, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that through those experiences, I had the privilege of meeting the late Senator Jay Rockefeller, who was our senator at that time, Senator Byrd, and I went to them and I talked with them about a concern that I had for a small town city, much like the size of Washington, Georgia, that had this incredible historic relic that no one knew about. And the reason they didn't is that, much like Washington, Georgia, it sat off, it didn't have a big pool, it does have a little lake like we do close to us, but it didn't have a big draw. And yet it had an interstate, Interstate 79 that passed right by it. And so I went to work and I wrote legislation, and I got their signatures on the legislation, and then I took it to the state capitol, and we were able to get the West Virginia State Department of Motor Vehicles to put a huge whopping sign out on the interstate, which then changed that small city, and it is now a thriving little city that has shops and cafes and fun things for people to do. Okay, so that's one of the things, but that's part of my past, part of my history. By the way, I'm a Colorado girl. I moved to Colorado as part of my career path, and while I was in Colorado, I was invited into a political forum, and they decided to send me to Washington, D.C., and there I was a lobbyist for the Faith-Based Initiative Act. I was able to get 3 prominent senators to sign that law. And so those are things that I have done in my past. Since then, I kind of got busy and was doing entrepreneurial work, and all of that packaged together is what I believe makes me a strong candidate for District 2 City Council in Washington, Georgia.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you got an early start.
I did.
An early exposure to government, small government and big government as well. So as someone who started a new business in Washington, what do you think can be done to encourage entrepreneurship and job creation in our community? Or what are the obstacles that also you think can be removed or more easily overcome?
Yes. I have this firm belief that if Washington would open wide its arms to new business enterprise, that we would be able to dynamically grow the repository of businesses that we have in this city. And when you have new business development, it increases the tax base, it brings jobs, and it brings new levels of education into the city. So what do I think can be done? Well, first of all, we have to develop policy at a city level that is a mindset as much as anything else. Now, well, yes, I believe that we need policy, but I also believe that we need to do some things about the mindset within City Hall, within our city leadership, and that is that we need to have an open door policy. We need to be very inviting. People should not feel intimidated to talk with our city government leaders. They should feel excited about bringing new businesses. One of the oppositions that I faced when I brought my ideas for businesses to Washington was that I was promised a lot. And I was promised things by city leaders that were costly on my part as a business owner. I had to go out, find the funding, do what I needed to do to make these things happen that I would need to happen for this business plan to effectively work. I did my part, but when it came time to actually be able to execute, they did not, and I was shut down. We can't do that to new businesses. And I was told, well, we have lots of people who come to our city, much like you, with great ideas, and they come and they get started, and then they pack up and leave. Well, that's a commentary on the city. That's not a commentary on the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur is the person with the idea. And by the way, we are the ones who have to put in all the sweat equity. We have to put in the time and the labor. We're the ones that have to go out and find the funding. We're the ones that have to be willing to go out and do the marketing. It's not just as simple as putting a sign on a door and then all of a sudden, if you build it, they will come. That is not true of entrepreneurship. That is not true of starting a new business. And whether we're a small, medium, or a large business, it takes the inclusiveness of the entire city in order to make it a success.
Would you say then, when, to the people who have said that historically there are people that come with ideas and start businesses and pack up and leave, do you think you have some insight then into why maybe they did leave? Some of the obstacles, do you think, are impacting their ability to stay or their decision to stay?
Well, look, Michelle, if there's one thing I want people to remember about me, is that I'm courageous. It does take courage to start a business, but it takes courage to stay when you have opposition coming your way. You think when you start a business that you get all excited. It's a very exciting time. It's like a child at Christmas. You can hardly wait to start unwrapping the packages. And so you think that everybody's in your corner and everybody's just as excited as you are. And you would think that would be the case of the leadership of a city. You would think that the leadership of the city would rally around your cause. And yet, when I held my very first event, I had only one of our city leaders to actually show up. So these are the kind of things that have caused me to realize that the city needs change, and I can be part of that change because of my experience, because of the question you just asked me. Yes, if we were to bring in the new types of education, if we were to bring in satellite college campuses, and if we were to bring in incubators, I would hope that I would have the privilege to be one of the spokespeople at these incubators, because I actually got my start in an incubator. I started my very first business in an incubator in 1992, I believe it was. And having the support of the incubator is what helped me to grow my business. Now, that also taught me that there's an interplay that goes on. And that is, while I need mentors, I need to be the mentee as well. And I cannot be offended when someone brings a situation to me about my business that maybe is not, functioning properly. I cannot allow because that's a sign of my insecurity. I've got to be strong and secure enough to say, okay, wow, I want to hear what you have to say. I have to be willing to listen, which is, I believe, one of my strong suites. I am a good listener. I've taken classes on the art of communication and the art of listening. As you know, I was a reporter. Told you earlier before we started that I began on radio years ago. Being a communicator is a vital part of being a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. In your campaign literature, you've mentioned the importance of safety in the community, especially as it pertains to children, having safe places to play, eliminating violence, and you shared too about the legislation that you worked on. So it seems like children and families is something that's close to your heart. Can you share your ideas on making Washington a safer community than it is now?
Michelle, I believe that we have to build a better future for our children here in Washington. I believe that with all my heart. Safety is important. As I go around knocking on doors, talking to the residents of the city, it has become very clear to me that we have concerns in our school system at the middle school level, all the way up into our high school level, where we've got bullying, we've got violence, and we have gang violence. And gang violence, any kind of crime, is like a cancer grows. We have to stop it at its earliest stages. I believe that we need peace officers on the streets. Absolutely believe in that. I've had numerous people. I would say out of every 10 doors that I knock on, 8 out of 10 say we need peace officers in our city. That's one of the things that people say to me. So that is important. But I see that as remediation. I actually see that as like how you fix a problem after there's a problem. I want to fix the problem before it gets started. And what I mean by that is providing outlets for our kids to have things to do that activate their mind. Not very far from the city of Washington is a city called Grantville. Grantville has a population less than the city of Washington. It's like 3,200 people, 3,500 people, something like that. They actually have a Children Connect museum in this city that brings families together, that connects families and children to the world at large.
Wonderful.
They also have an open air, year-round park that's a trampoline park. Now, if a city the size of Grantville can do these kind of things, Washington can do these kinds of things. We have numerous buildings that are sitting idle, that are not being used, and should and could be used for facilities that would be fun places for our kids and our families together. Here's a story. I knocked on the door in a neighborhood here in Washington, and a 14-year-old boy came to the door. his parents weren't home, but his grandfather was there. And because his grandfather was walking with a cane, he invited me to come in to his home, and I did. And so I sat down on the couch, and I looked up at the 14-year-old, and I asked his name, and I asked what he enjoys doing, and he talked about, I asked him if he felt safe at school. And he said, for the most part he did. I asked him if there was any bullying. He said, yes. I said, gang violence? Yes. He said, but I just stay away from that. I said, well, how do you stay away from that? He said, well, I just, stay with my studies. I have my group of friends. And then I looked at him and I said, do you know what a Dave and Buster's is? He said, I think I've been to one once. I said, if there were a Dave and Buster's in Washington, what would that mean to you? And he said, well, it'd give me time to do more than just that. And he pointed to the couch. Seated beside me, and I'm going to send a picture of this to you so you can add it to your... On the couch was the most magnificent, incredibly engineered paper airplane. He's a 14-year-old, and he's making paper airplanes. So I got to work, and I started calling aviators that I know in the city. I started looking at youth aviation programs, and if you elect me as a city council person, I'm going to do my best to get a youth aviation program to this city, because where there's one, there's many. And we need to give our kids two things. One is that we have to teach our youth to value their bodies and their minds. And we need to give them places where they can imagine. And then they can go away, go out and go to school and do big things. And then bring all of that back to their hometown.
Yeah, and have the pathway and see the pathway
to get there.
Yeah,
they shouldn't have to wait until they're 18 years old, go away to college, and all of a sudden have this aha moment that leaves them trailing behind their peers who have had these kinds of opportunities in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. A common complaint that citizens seem to have, and you would know since you're going out and talking to people if you hear this as well, I hear it quite a bit, is that there's too much division and lack of decorum at the city council meetings. What, if anything, do you believe can be done to change that? And if you're elected to city council, how would you handle that, and how do you think you could impact that?
That's an excellent question, and it is that is a prevailing concern in the city. Well, first of all, let me say this: all of us together, have to get off of the treadmill of the they and then become a we. They, I hear this all the time, they don't want change. They want to keep us stuck. They are the people who bring the crime into the city. It's the they. They is a pronoun that has woven its way into the fabric of the society of Washington, Georgia. I have heard it for as long as I've lived here, which is a short term, but I've heard it a lot. We are the citizens of this city, and we have to be the ones to come together, and we have to learn to communicate with one another. So to answer your question, how would we bring more decorum to our city council meetings? Well, first of all, we start by giving our people a voice. All of the citizens of the city become a voice to the city, not just our city leaders. Therefore, we have to have an open door policy. If I become a city council person here in the city of Washington, I will absolutely invite an open door policy to all of the people who live here to come to me and share with me what their concerns are. And I will bring those concerns to our city council meetings. But I will do that long before the first Monday of the month at 6 o'clock in the evening. What that means is I will be having conversations and I will be in communication. And it isn't just that I will be presenting a problem. I'm going to bring solutions, because it's not enough to just know the problem. Civility doesn't happen out of policy. Civility starts with here. It starts in our hearts. Civility with one another is the way that we behave out there when no one's looking. Not just when we're in front of people where all eyes are on us.
So are you saying that, I hear you saying that you think it's really important, not just at the council meetings, that civility, for it to be there, it starts with engaging with the community in a civil way, ongoing as a representative of the people of the district that you are voted into?
Michelle, I would like to see, now I've tossed this out to a number of people as I'm out talking with people, and by the way, I've gotten a great response on this. While our city is, it certainly doesn't run the blocks of a New York City, or it's a small enough city that we can do this now at this stage. Still, it is large enough that if I live on one end of the city, I'm over on this particular end of the city, I may not necessarily have as much interaction with the folks who are on the other side. And so I've been talking about, what if we created like these community block party programs, basically, where within the community, we just pick 3 or 4 streets and that becomes your block. And you, the people of that block, you gather together and you talk about the concerns that you have. In essence, we're creating like a community watch program. And it isn't just about being vigilante. Pardon my voice, by the way. As you can tell, I've been out talking to a lot of people, so I'm a little bit hoarse. Okay, so it's not about creating a vigilante concept. It's about imagining and bringing our ideas and our philosophies and our skills, our experiences, our knowledge. We have a very large aging population. The majority, although the census says we're at 42 when you gather all the people together, we have a large aging population, which says to me, we have a lot of wisdom in this city. We need to be collecting that wisdom and bringing it together so that we, the seniors of this city, can pass the baton off to the youth of this city. And one of the ways to do that would be by collectively garnering that knowledge, garnering that experience into community blocks, where then all of that information, and this could be easily guided, it can be a guided process, and then all of that information becomes compiled, brought back to the city leaders, and the city leaders then come together and we sit down at a summit and we spend time together looking over all the compilation of all this data. And then we see, what are we seeing that's fairly consistent across the board? That's what we go after. That's what we fix. One of the things that I hear over and over and over again, our sidewalks, our signs, our infrastructure, these are our parks. I mean, look, we don't even have parks that are safe for our kids to play in. We don't have parks for our adults. We don't have tennis courts. We're growing pickleball. People around here they're wanting to learn pickleball. We've got tennis players, and our courts are in major disrepair. If we start to hear, if all across the city we start to hear, these are the things that are important, these are the things that we want to accomplish, then we know we're on the right track as city leaders. And then we can gauge our success. We can monitor and we can gauge our success. You'll hear me use this word a lot. I use the word revitalization. I'm all about a revitalization plan that is 5-fold. It makes a city, we are competitive, we are inclusive, we are resilient, we are green, and we are economically integrated. Now, I can break all of those things down, but those would be some of the talk points that I would bring to each of these city blocks. And I would say, you as a group of people, would you tell me, what does the word inclusive mean to you, and how can we? What does the word economically integrated mean to you? In my opinion, economically integrated means that we have a variety of businesses, all that come into this city that help to support our tax base, that grows our economy, and brings new jobs. But I want to hear from you. What does that mean to you? What does being green mean? I mean, that's a word that you hear at large around the world. And for a lot of people, that means like picking up plastic bottles. And we do there are citizens of this city who do a great job of walking around cleaning up the city. I applaud them. I think it's amazing that we do that. Now, let's add to that. Let's layer on top of that. Let's get bike trails. Because, by the way, when you have bike trails in a city, you boost the economy of the city. So let's clean up our parks. Let's make our square a place where families enjoy gathering. It's a safe and fun place to gather. Yes, we have festivals, but we need to expand on all of that. So those are some of the things that I feel like would make a huge difference at the city leadership level if we were listening to the people right where they are.
Okay, wonderful. On your campaign Facebook page, you've shared, I think I read it and thought this is great, and I think other people might like to know this about you, that you were raised a middle child in a quite large family, and that experience was instrumental in the person that you are today. What do you think is the one skill that you will find most beneficial from that experience if elected to city council?
Great. Compromise. You absolutely have to learn how to compromise. If not, I'm a bully. I'm not willing to be that, and we've already seen how that works. So, in a large family, you learn that, and especially as a child, I want. But you have to learn how to listen to, because I'm sandwiched in between, I'm as middle as you can possibly get in this family of 8 living, 10 altogether, 2 deceased. But you have to learn how what you want, how does what you want fit with the larger dynamic? How do we as a living organism move together so that it's healthy and vital for everyone? So learning to listen is so important. Learning to compromise. Learning to take yourself out of, in any time you're passionate, you're going to be very you're going to be very determined to have your way. One of the ways that my father, my mother were brilliant in the way that they helped guide us through that process is we held family meetings. Every week we had family meetings. Now my father was a pastor, so we always led in prayer. We had a little Bible study, and then we had family meetings. And we were, even in my teens, I remember confronting my parents as a teenager would, confronting my parents on questions that I had, things that, but if there was ever a time when 2 of us simply could not and would not agree, my dad and my mom would usher us to another room in the house, and one would go in one room and the other would go in the other room, and there we had to sit in the quiet and kind of think about what we were doing and how we were behaving. Well, now, I like my people. I love my family. And I wanted to be back in the room It's not fun to be separated. It's not fun to be excluded. It's not fun to be out, because you don't know what you missed when you're not in the room. And so I chose to learn how to concede so that I could be in the room. And I think that that is an incredible quality that I bring to Washington City Council.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for taking the time and sharing those things with me and with the voters who are making a decision here coming up this fall. And we just thank you so much.